How would you feel about a female roommate occasionally going topless in the apartment? And as a follow-up, would you feel any more or less comfortable if they were a man? TBH, I would be annoyed because that's not the norm. I think anything that is out of the ordinary should be discussed beforehand together as roommates. It would personally make me uncomfortable whether it was a man or woman. Nudity isn't really my thing. I'm really not comfortable with anybody but my significant other being partially nude in our shared living space. Even if I lived in a place with my absolute best friends, I wouldn't be comfortable if they roamed the house, apartment topless. I mean, bras are fine, but I don't really want nude nipples near me. That's true regardless of the gender of the person. I wouldn't care. Just put clothes on when we have company and we are good. I'd appreciate a bit of a heads up, like, oh by the way, I sometimes walk around topless, so don't be surprised if you see my tits out. Then I know that this is just normal for this person. I've seen my friends' breasts when they were breastfeeding. I once went to a Japanese onsen with a friend, where it's 100% nudity. It did not bother me. Nudity at home ought to be the norm. That's the one place where we shouldn't have to wear clothes. I 28F would be very uncomfortable, slightly less uncomfortable if it was a man, but this need to go around the apartment topless is an absolute must. I'd probably move out. If she makes sure we don't have company before leaving her room with her tits out, that's fine by me. Why would the sight of a topless man bother me? Men walk around topless everywhere when it's warm? Weirded out at first, but after reflecting on it, the weirdness is totally arbitrary and in the way female breasts are sexualized. Then I think about heteronormativity and how it assumes that women are straight. I'm bi and one of my roommates is lesbian. I can't help but feel that this would be erotic and crossing boundaries. For what it's worth, I wouldn't want my male roommate to go topless. I wouldn't necessarily find it weird, but it seems sleazy to me, especially since he's dating my friend and other roommate. It wouldn't bother me, unless I have company over. I would probably be walking around topless too. I'm always bottomless in my apartment, so being completely nude would be awesome cool, and men shirtless isn't an issue at all. In my household, of 2 guys and 2 girls, we've gotten pretty comfortable of going topless or even bare-ass naked in front of each other, normally if we are getting ready, getting dressed, about to use the bathroom, etc. We do see each other as friends and wouldn't do so in front of guests or strangers. After drawing people in school in the nude, growing up in a household that nakedness wasn't seen as an issue, and being comfortable in my own skin, I've grown desensitized to nudity. My brain clicks to normal, artistic, or sexual nude depending on the situation. Let them fly free, lol. I wouldn't care, breasts and chests are beautiful. Pretty uncomfortable regardless of their gender. I'm just generally not very comfortable with nudity or toplessness outside of my romantic relationship. I'd be super uncomfortable with a roommate hanging around topless regardless of gender. I wouldn't mind so much for if it was like a walking from the shower to the bedroom or a spilled something in their shirt kinda situation. In my opinion, when you're living with other people, shared spaces should be treated like public spaces. I wouldn't care either way. I think it's a little disrespectful if you had guests over, but if you are the only ones there, no biggie. Surprised by all the responses saying no, they'd be uncomfortable. I've lived with my girlfriends and nudity was rampant and totally normal, and this was in America at the time. I'm in Europe now and this really wouldn't be a problem here. Edit, simplified my comment. I wouldn't mind, but I'm also an artist, so I suppose nudity doesn't really bother me at all. We all have boobs. But, if it makes you uncomfortable, that is a perfectly valid feeling to have, and worth sharing with your roommate, without shaming her of course. I wouldn't mind at all, but it's something that needs to be discussed previously. Emo. Had a male roommate who did that and it make me uncomfortable ASF, and I definitely don't think it would have been any better if it was woman doing it. Maybe it's a trauma thing IDK, but it makes me so uncomfortable. I would obviously never ask someone to stop though just because of my feelings. Lol. I'd be super uncomfortable. Because to me women's breasts is an intimate thing, and are not to be shown to those who aren't intimate with you. That's how I feel. Edit, OMG, waking up to see 40 deleted replies is like digging out an ancient battlefield. Lol. You never know who fought and what for, but boy this had to be bloody. I'm sorry but no. I don't even wanna see my mum's boobies and I lived off of those for a year. If we're not just roommates, but friends, it doesn't bother me. It would be proof that we aren't meant to be roommates because I'd be uncomfortable no matter if it was a man or woman. Depends what the activity is. For instance, if they forgot their clothes in the dryer and were running out to grab what they needed then went back to their room, I'd be fine as long as it wasn't prolonged and had a purpose. If they were spending the whole day undressed in front of me, I would be uncomfortable. One of the unfortunate things of living in a communal space is that you have to deal with other people and their weirdness. I wouldn't mind at all. As long as they have some underwear on when they want to sit on the couch, I'm cool with whatever level of nudity they want. Male or female. Wouldn't bother me as long as it's practical. I don't wear a bra at home anyways and got the headlights going anyways. If it's a hot summer day, I'd be walking around the house topless too. I live in the desert. I'd draw the line if it were the opposite, where she'd be wearing a top and not wearing and pants or undies. Then I'd find a new roommate lol. Ain't no one want to deal with coochie sweat on the couch. Depends on how close I was with the roommate. The more I knew them, the more comfortable I think I would be. I think it's a conversation worth having beforehand. I wouldn't care. I'd be doing it if going around braless wasn't so uncomfortable. I really would not care, though I'd probably feel a bit awkward if my male partner was there. When I shared a flat with another woman, she would usually wear t-shirt and knickers, and I'd wear jeans and bra. So combined we had a full outfit, but rarely both fully clothed. I'm European, she is Asian. I think it's kind of weird if they randomly do it. If they're wearing a super tight top and no bra, that's cool, but fully nude? Awkward. Depends on how long I know them, I guess. But even if my best friend randomly stripped, I'd be confused. Maybe ask them to throw on a tank top or a pajama shirt in the common areas if she knows you're home. If it's an accident, I get it, but if it's consistent and you're uncomfortable, you can tell her. Yeah, wouldn't care. Nudity isn't always sexual, and it shouldn't be, as long as there's no creepiness about it and they're willing to be dressed when there's guests, then I'm totes cool with it. I'd probably be a bit surprised, but it'd be fine, especially if it's only occasionally. As long as she isn't doing it when I have guests around. I might feel slightly less comfortable, not sure if that's the best word in this scenario, if it was a man, as it'd be more interesting for me to see a topless man than a woman, so to speak. As a straight woman, winking face. What I'm saying is that it would catch my attention in a different way and I'd always feel aware of it in a different way, no matter if he'd be attractive to me or not. I'd be pretty uncomfortable NGL. I have a male roommate and whenever he's topless in the house I'm pretty uncomfortable with that too. Just, unless I'm dating the person, I'd prefer they covered up. I think nudity without a sexual context is awesome and I would not feel uncomfortable. Men literally walk around with their tops off all the time and no one ever has an issue with it. If they can do it, then this girl should be able to as well. I don't mind, I would probably do the same regardless of gender. I know it sometimes gets hot or whatever, so do whatever that makes yourself comfy if you're my roommate. Haha, when I was in uni there was no shame between us female roommates. To the point where, if anyone was going to bring a guest, they would announce, I have a guy coming over, so for Christ's sake make sure you put some clothes on. I'd be a bit shocked at first and a bit uncomfortable, but as long as it isn't like some form of them making a move on me, I'd do my best to ignore it and communicate if there are issues, guests over, family visiting, etc. I swing both ways and have a tendency to stare in random spots when I'm thinking, so my main concern would be not making them uncomfortable or thinking that I'm leering at them. Me and my sisters pretty often walked around with no clothes on after a shower, to grab clothes from the laundry, etc., so that would not be particularly unusual. I guess it would be a little strange if they were just hanging out on the couch tits out, but if they were air drying after a shower that wouldn't be so weird. I think it would be a little odd if a guy were doing it, but only because I have no brothers or close male relatives, so I'm not as used to it. Part of me enjoying my space at home is being able to walk around nude. Usually I am either without bottoms or without top, not usually both. When I go from the shower to my room is when I am full nude. I asked my roommates who also happen to be close friends if this was okay and told them to let me know if that changes. One of them now walks around in her underwear and sometimes topless as well and thanked me for making her more comfortable doing so. So in response, I would be totally okay with it as long as it was agreed to by all parties and agreed to be revisited periodically. Depends on our relationship. If the roommate and I are super comfortable with each other, then yeah, I wouldn't care. I grew up with sisters I'm F, and seeing each other in our underwear or naked was no biggie. If my roommate was male and they went around topless, it's no biggie either. It'll be little bit different if it was a female roommate and a male roommate. And honestly, it depends on the relationship too. If they're the type that seeing each other's bodies is no big deal, then fine. But that's something that needs to be evolved into or talked about between them. I think it depends on what our relationship is. If we are good friends and I know she's cool with casual nudity, then that's fine with me. If we are strictly roommates, I would prefer they remain covered since that's polite. My answer is the same regardless of the gender of my hypothetical roommate. Clothing is not optional in shared spaces regardless of gender unless explicitly agreed upon ahead of time. I wouldn't care as long as she doesn't put the heater at high because she gets cold this way. P. Also wouldn't be comfortable if she did it around people I invite over who are attracted to women, since it would very likely disrupt the conversation, but unless it became an actual issue I wouldn't care much, and it would be weird if it was in front of my BF date that I would say something. Other than that, I wouldn't care. If it was a man, I also don't mind, and it did kinda happen to me. He did the towel walk after a shower, but it honestly just kinda stopped the conversation for a while if people were there, since he was very hot, and my heterosexual friends and one time mom lol just smiled a lot when it happened. XD I didn't mind, but let's be honest, I was looking, so it wouldn't bother me at all. If you've seen one pair of boobs, you've seen them all. Woman shrugging. Light skin tone and boobs shouldn't be as sexualized as they are, anyway. Edit to say I'm 28F. It would make me uncomfortable, and as a bisexual it may be a distraction too. Cold sweat smile. Considering it's not illegal here for either sex to walk around outside nipple-free, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care even if it was. I am trying to practice nudism, so not a problem for me. My roommate and I walk around naked or in underwear all the time. We're both girls, we have similar bodies, and we don't have to worry about that in our own home.